This year, in the midst of anti-genocide protests across the United States, the House adopted the Antisemitism Awareness Act, which mandates that the Department of Education adopt the ERA definition. And the way this really, by the way, shows up in media coverage and national discourse on anti-Semitism on campuses is through the language of categorization, specifically the delineation made between Jewish students and pro-Palestinian students. It's a very cynical use of language. First, it makes the default position of Jewish students, and thus all Jews, to be pro-Israel and pro-genocide. We see Jewish identity explicitly weaponized in service of, again, a genocide overseen by a country that claims to represent all Jews. But this is, of course, demonstrably false, especially when we see how Jewish Americans have also been at the forefront of protesting against this genocide, including on campuses. Pro-Palestinian as a categorization is an umbrella term that includes Arabs, Muslims, Christians, Black Americans, Jews, LGBTQIA, and all the ways these intersect. But when pitted against Jewish students or just Jews, it's made threatening because of how Palestinians and the fight for their liberation is manufactured in American and Zionist narratives as anti-Semitic, wanting the destruction of Jews. The categorization of Jewish students, like we see in news coverage, like we see in congressional hearings, takes away the vested politics part of the campaign to discuss anti-Semitism on campuses, the stifling of any and all critique of Israel, and distracting from the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Meaning, the Jewish students being paraded in the media as concerned for their safety aren't simply just Jewish students. They're pro-Israel students. But calling them pro-Israel students would immediately, one, imply that there are anti-Israel Jewish students, which goes against the mainstream pro-Israel framings, and two, undermine the manufactured accusation of anti-Semitism against anti-genocide, anti-apartheid activists. Because once you start saying, what about the Jewish students who are advocating against the genocide of Palestinians? The tropes of Jewish student fears and Jewish student safety on campuses collapse. Because Jewish students are not having a monolithic experience on their campuses. In fact, for many Jewish students across American campuses, the greatest threats to their safety have been their administrations and pro-Israel groups and students. But that's not the narrative that pro-Israel groups want, nor the one news organizations care to report on. And while there is nothing objectively threatening about the term pro-Palestinian, and so not recognizing that Arab, Palestinian, Muslim students are facing threats to their safety from every level of American society is a purposeful and calculated neglect in defense of support for the genocide of Palestinians.
Yikes.